Hey guys, what's up? It's Dave with How to Beast, and in this video I want to talk about if building muscle and getting in really good shape actually affects how people perceive you and how people perceive your confidence, your attractiveness, and whether or not they respect you or not, before you even open your mouth. We're really talking about first impressions here. And this is a question that I think people wonder about all the time because, let's be honest, most guys start lifting weights because they want to get laid more. I started lifting weights because I thought that it would be a path to women. Maybe I didn't really focus on the fact that every time I went to the gym, I wasn't like visualizing myself getting laid, but it certainly was one of the main motivators for me to start lifting weights. And I know it's the same for almost every guy out there. I mean, we want to look better naked, and we know that lifting weights will get us there. And so we follow that path. And we want to look better naked, of course, because women like guys who look better naked, and that gets you laid more. Sure, I'm maybe over-exaggerating and overemphasizing this aspect of this motivation for lifting weights, but it certainly is one of the main motivators for guys to get into weights. Anyway, does lifting weights and building muscle really change how people perceive you and perceive your attractiveness and your confidence? I think it's a fair question. Or is getting in shape really something you should just do for yourself? Well, I definitely believe that it is something you should just do for yourself, but at the same time, it does have a huge impact on how other people perceive you. Here's why. So one, if you're really out of shape, so say you're really fat, you're noticeably fat, you got a gut, you got a double chin, or you just, on the other hand, maybe you're really scrawny, you're really small shoulders, you have no chest or no back, you're just really, really fucking skinny. If you take either of these extremes, the fact is that people aren't really going to respect you up front. Maybe, you have some really high position, you're the CEO of a company or whatnot, they're going to respect you because of that, but all other things not being considered, only taking your physique into the equation, when people look at you, their first impression is not going to be one of respect and admiration. You're going to have the very opposite of an intimidating posture, right? You're not going to be intimidating anyone. You're not going to be really having much of a presence to anyone. You might, when you see a fat person or a really scrawny person, you're not immediately going to think like, oh wow, this guy must be really confident and strong and cool. You might not consciously think anything, but subconsciously, you're going to associate that poor physique, that fat or that scrawny physique, with sort of a lazy character. If you get really fat, this shows a lack of self-discipline, that you just stuff your face all day and you don't exercise. If you're really scrawny, it shows a similar lack of self-discipline, that you probably haven't exercised in the last 5 years, and that you're malnourished, or you're really weak and frail. And these are the types of things that people are going to associate with people who are really out of shape. So right up front, before you even open your mouth, people are going to have lost respect for you, because they're going to see that, your values, maybe not your actual values, but they're going to associate these characteristics of, weakness, lack of self-discipline, like I talked about, with you before you even open your mouth. All right, a second reason that lifting weights plays such a big role in how other people perceive you is that when you do have noticeable muscle mass, people are going to show a greater degree of respect for you. So a study was recently done, and if you want to see the study, check out the article in the link below. I linked to this specific study in my article version of this video. But it compared the sexual history of men with different shoulder to hip ratios. And what it found was that men with greater shoulder to hip ratios, so guys whose shoulders were, much wider than their hips, tended to have much more filled sexual pasts. They tended to have sex at a younger age. They tended to have sex with more sexual partners, and they tended to have more sex in general. And what this tells us is that guys who are in shape get laid more. The shoulder to hip ratio is more or less defined by how much you work out. Sure, there are genetic differences, and we all have different bone structures, so we all have different starting points. But the fact of the matter is that when you lift weights and you build muscle in your shoulders and your upper back, the width of your shoulders increases. And at the same time, when you lift weights and you decrease your body fat, assuming you have a good diet and you decrease your body fat, the main measurement that decreases your waist and your hip measurement. That that comes in. That's where we tend to hold a lot of our fat. So the fact of the matter is that by lifting weights and by getting in really good shape, you increase this shoulder to hip ratio. And as this study shows, the results are pretty clear. Guys who have a larger shoulder to hip ratio get laid more. And sure, that's just one aspect of all this. But I think that proves pretty much without a doubt that women find guys with big shoulder to hip ratios, guys with muscle mass, more attractive. And by the same token, if you're a guy, when you meet a guy who's clearly works out, maybe he's not a bodybuilder, but he clearly has, a strong built physique, you're immediately going to show him more respect than if you met that fat guy or that scrawny guy, or just an average looking guy who doesn't noticeably look really strong or, really out of shape. So when you meet that guy, you immediately associate things like strength and authority with this guy. Whereas on the other hand, women, when they see it, they're going to think it's attractive. That strength is going to be sort of a sign of security. But by both tokens, people are going to show you more respect when you have noticeable amount of muscle mass on your frame when they meet you. All right. The third part of this equation is simply that you're going to be more confident once you've, gotten in good shape and built muscle. And this is simply because you accomplished what you set out to do. You got into the game because you wanted to get better with women, maybe, or maybe because you wanted to get more respect from guys. But one of your main motivators was probably had to do with how other people perceive you. In my case, I said I wanted to get laid more. So once you achieve what you set out to achieve and you build, better muscle mass and you achieve a much better physique, what's going to happen is that your beliefs about yourself are going to change. So on one hand, people are actually going to perceive you differently, as we covered before. But on the other hand, how you think you're being perceived by people is going to change too. And this sort of stacks on top of each other in sort of like a double effect. Double entendre. I'm just kidding. But that's one of those rap words, I don't even know what it means. I'm going to go Urban Dictionary that after this video. But on one hand, people perceive you as more confident. On the other hand, that people are perceiving you as more confident. And so you act more confidently. And of course, that is another added effect to that people perceive confident people as more attractive and more, stronger, more respectable. So all these things sort of stack on top of each other and make a big difference at the end of the day. So the one note I'd like to say about this is that there are people who get body image disorders when they get into working out. They start off really scrawny or really fat, and then they get skinnier or they get more jacked. But as this happens, they just compare themselves to people who are in better and better shape. So at first they're comparing themselves to, an average jacked guy at the gym, and then they're as big as him or they're bigger than him, and now they're comparing themselves to bodybuilders. Or, in the case of women, a lot of times they lose some weight and then they're comparing themselves to like the magazine cover models at like the supermarket. And that's when things like anorexia and other body image disorders come into play. So that is a risk. And you have to realize that we're not talking about being the absolutely top bodybuilding physique in the world here, but simply by being in noticeably good shape and being, someone who clearly lifts weights. That alone is going to grant you these benefits. You don't need to go to the extremes. Anyway, that's all I got for y'all today. Lift weights, boost your confidence, get beastly, and as always, stay beastly.